What's up, everyone? Chicago Joe here. It's been a while since I made a video, so wanted to check in with everybody. This is going to be a daytime video for once. But we have a lot of headlines to go over, and I figured instead of doing kind of a deep roster breakdown like I've done in the past, and I don't really want to do a 40-minute video. I want something smaller that people can chew on, get a little analysis of, but then kind of go on with their day. So I'm not going to do a 40-minute video, but we got some headlines to talk about in Chicago sports. So we're gonna kind of pick up where we left off in the last video, and we were in the midst of after the first 2 days of the NFL draft last time we talked, and I gave you my suggestions on what the draft picks meant. Some people claim that at the end of the draft, the Bears basically went the mad scientist route. So it they didn't take an edge rusher. We all thought that was going to be a first round. Even Courtney Cronin, covers the Bears for ESPN, she pretty much said it was going to be a defensive player in the first round, which ended up being true. But I think she thought it was going to be an edge rusher, and so as time went on, we had those 2 second-round picks, we had some third-round picks, and as time went on, we weren't getting an edge rusher, and so we got all the way to the end of the draft without drafting. We drafted a defensive lineman out of Notre Dame or Georgia Tech or something like that in the seventh round. He appears to be kind of a monster on the D line, but he's a seventh rounder, so it remains to be seen what kind of a player that guy will be. But basically, bottom line here is that the Bears went offensive. They got a speedy wide receiver. I still think that was a great pick. They got another tight end, a third tight end, which seems to be a trend. Even Sean McVay kind of had a lot of 3 tight end sets going into the end of last year. So I can see that being kind of a new trend. And I'm kind of in the let Ben Johnson cook category, and Ryan Poles as well. I'm going to give him credit too. But I'm just kind of in the let him cook category. Like they clearly had a plan. There was clearly some communication there where, hey, I need another tight end. I need a speedy wide receiver. I need this and that. And I guess edge rusher was never on that list of we absolutely need to go get somebody. There were rumors that the Bears had, they even inquired about Lawrence from New York Giants when he requested a trade. And yeah, he's a D lineman, but you could tell that the Bears were interested in something D line related. There was some big names like Max Crosby and Hendrickson on the market this year, and I know the Bears didn't want to trade away a whole bunch of draft capital and leverage the next few years of first round picks to go get somebody, but you could tell that they were interested in somebody on the defensive line, and that's kind of why we all just assumed, when nothing happened in free agency or the trade market, they assumed like, okay, we're going to go draft, and I'm cool with drafting, like build through the draft. That's what some of these great teams, Green Bay's done that for years, and we were always pissed because they beat us because they built through the draft, and we were out here trying to pay for big players. And so I was okay with it, but we got to the end, and we actually saw the end of the year press conference with Poles and Ben Johnson, and I think Ben Johnson said it best when he basically said, we had some injuries on the defensive line that led to a loss in production, and it made the edge position and the defensive pass rush look a little worse than it probably was. He said we have some pieces in there that were trending in the right direction, and he believes that it's an in-house solution. He believes that there's room there to build some of these guys up and turn them into the edge rusher that we need without having to leverage draft picks or without having to trade or sign a big name free agent in a world where we don't really have the cap space. So I'm letting them cook. They earned that right. They made the playoffs last year. They got to the divisional round. They beat Green Bay twice. They've got the benefit of the doubt in my mind. I'm letting them cook. If they think those guys are going to be good enough to get a pass rush, that's fine. Let me tell you though, I don't care who you have back there at safety. I don't care if you have all the Jalen Johnsons, Tyreek Stevensons, Kyler Gordons, Dylan Thieneman. I don't care if Kobe Bryant's back there. I don't care who you have in that secondary. If you can't get a pass rush, you will get picked apart. That's the nature of this league. It changed when Patrick Mahomes got here. I'm not a big Patrick Mahomes fan. I'm going to take heat for saying this, but I do think he's a little bit overrated. But that air raid style system that he brought with him and that Andy Reid installed when he got here, that was a game changer, and that's become a big thing now. And so my whole thing is like, yeah, it's great to have a good secondary, But if you're not getting pressure on that quarterback, forcing him to make reads faster, forcing him to throw balls before he's ready to, it's you're gonna get picked apart. I look back to the Bears a few years ago when they had Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson was a ball hawk. I love the guy. He was doing great. And then suddenly we couldn't pass rush anymore. Suddenly we couldn't get through. We couldn't wreck games by pass rushing. And suddenly Eddie Jackson looked mediocre because those balls were going where they needed to go on time and they weren't being rushed. They weren't being thrown under duress. And that makes a big difference. So I'm going to say, like, I sure hope this in house solution is not just a kind of a cover up. Like, I'm okay with them choosing the best available player. You don't draft based on your need. You draft based on best available. So you're not going to go reach for an edge rusher that may be a second or third round pick in the first round just because you need it. You take the best available, and I'm okay with that strategy. But I hope this whole in-house thing is not just a kind of a cover up for they weren't able to make it happen. They're just going to try and piece it together. I know they're not in the mode of let's piece it together and see what happens. But yeah. By the way, I just realized my shirt's sticking through here. My dog got a hold of this when we were on vacation one week and chewed my shirt apart. So sorry for that's a Chicago Joe look for you there. Just average dude, not even fully clothed here because I got holes in my shoulder. But anyway, moving on. So we do have some Bulls news. I can't remember if the last time we talked, if I think we did talk a little bit about Billy Donovan and how he had adapted his coaching style and finally gotten the players he needed to be a modern NBA system. Well, he's out. He didn't want to do a rebuild, and that's no surprise to anyone. He didn't stick around in OKC because they said they were going to do a full rebuild, and he said no, and that's why he became available for the Bulls to sign. So the fact that the Bulls are the Bulls said they were going to bring in the executive that had to work with him. They said it was his job if he wanted it, but I think he also saw the writing on the wall and said, hey, they're going to try and rebuild, and I think it was clear with the trades that they made. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a full rebuild, full tear down, look to tank for another season. I think they're going to actually try to make some moves, but I also think it's going to be kind of a slower process, and I don't think he was wanting to hang around and for another couple bad seasons and just try to keep his lips shut and do his job the best he can with mediocre players until he was ready to finally get a contender. So Billy Donovan's out. Chicago Bulls have hired Bryson Graham from the Atlanta Hawks to be their new executive vice president or executive president. I can't remember which title it is, but whatever that title is, he is the head man in charge of basketball operations now under the Reinsdorfs. A little bit about him: he was with New Orleans Pelicans for a while. Was known for a guy who started very low and moved up, which always is a good sign to me. Not only do you know every spot of that organization and front office because you've moved up through it, but it shows that you have competence, people respect you, and people like your opinion. So I'm pretty certain that that's going to end up being a very good. Hold on a second, I just forgot to shut down my work computer, but I have a feeling that's going to be a very, very good kind of pedigree for a guy that we want in here. Now, he went to Atlanta, and I guess the gripe, I've heard very mixed bag reviews about Bryson Graham. Some of the interviews I've seen and what he said, I like what I hear. It's a different pick. It's not what any of us expected. So maybe it's Reinsdorf's not going their traditional route. Maybe they're changing it up a bit, or maybe they went cheap. Depending on who you talk to, those are the narratives you're going to get. I guess the knock on him is that Atlanta and New Orleans were not really these powerhouse teams. He didn't build them into something. He might have been in charge. He might have been the guy, but it wasn't a situation where he was just building a monster franchise, monster teams, and then now he's coming here to do the same thing. He did a decent job, but he didn't build perennial playoff contenders who were knocking on the door of NBA Eastern Conference Finals or NBA Finals. And so the knock on him is that, he may have done a great job, but is he going to come here and do the same thing where just kind of Are we playing for a playing game again? I guess is the concern that people had. But then some other people tout him for his ability to scout. I can't remember the names, but he had two players that he drafted, and they weren't really players that were on a lot of people's radar, and he drafted them and turned them into fairly good players on their team, respective teams. So one thing I noticed about him is he came in, he says we're going to go with the OKC/Boston model, which if you look at Boston right now, I don't really want that model. They're talking about trading away their superstars and starting over, getting rid of Tatum and Brown. I just, it may not be working. I don't know if it's coach or what, but I don't like the Boston model. Don't tell me that. Like, yeah, they got there one year and almost had it, but I don't know about the Boston model. Now, the OKC model, that is one I want. If he says that that's the model he's gonna, so let's break it down what that means. He wants a fast-paced team. He wants a team that can shoot three-pointers. Well, we've already got some of those pieces in place. That's kind of what we were building towards when we got rid of AK. That's what Billy Donovan wanted. He wanted to coach a team that's a modern style NBA team. But the other aspect to it is that defensive minded and long athletic players. So you look at OKC, like Chet Holmgren, that guy, he doesn't look like the strongest guy. He's very lanky, very long, but man, it's tough to get passes around that. It's tough to get shots over him. Like, guys like that are what is going to be a priority. I think back to Luol Deng. That's kind of, I would say that's kind of the prototype that we're looking for right now, is those guys who can shoot, they can score, they can play defense, but they're also long. They've got those long arms that disrupt passing lanes. And so Bryson says that that's kind of the model, and he wants two-way players. So what do we have on the roster? I mean, Matas Buzelis is 6'10". He's got that length. He's shown ability to score. He's got that defense. I think he's the perfect prototype for what Bryson Graham says he wants to come in and build. I think Josh Giddey is in that conversation. I don't know if his defense is quite up to par, what you need to be at a point guard position, but he's got that scoring aspect and that two-way aspect. Got Noah Swing. We got him going. Outside that, though, I mean, guys like Anthony Simons and Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham is actually one I had billed for another team, but when you look at his defensive prowess, it's really not there. He's really not a long guy, so I can see a lot of casualties on this roster if Bryson Graham is really serious about going that OKC long defensive two-way player route. The other thing that kind of concerns me, but the priorities are right, and that's he wants to draft somebody who has defense first, which, he wants a guy to come in who's long and can play defense. That's how you build a team, he believes. And then you can learn to shoot and do the three-pointers and kind of get the pace of play and everything else as time goes on. I don't know what the best way to do it is. I'd rather a team come in and learn to shoot threes and then learn to play defense. I don't know the best way to do it. That's why I'm not in the position. But so that's kind of what his priorities are. He also has said that he hopes to be the type of leader that you can call him out if he's wrong about something, which that's a big deal. Like, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of egos when you get up to the general manager and executive vice president positions on these teams, and sometimes they say it's my way or the highway. This is the right way to do it because I think it's the right way to do it, and I'm in charge. And I like the idea of a guy who will come in and basically say, tell me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, we'll switch it and we'll make sure it's right. So it remains to be seen who he is, but the number one biggest decision he's going to make is who is your coach, because you got to bring in somebody. And there's some gripes because Matt Lloyd was interviewed over the weekend for the position, and he's currently the general manager with the Timberwolves. And as we all know, Timberwolves just bounced Denver from the playoffs. So that's an organization that's completely done a 180. They were not doing well. They were kind of down in the dumps. They traded for Jimmy Butler to the Bulls when they gave us Levine, and that didn't materialize. They sent him off, and ever since they were kind of nothing. And here they are, they're back again, and Lloyd's kind of the architect of that. And a lot of people thought that he should have been the one. Now, the gripe against Bryson Graham is that he's kind of the budget option. They didn't want to pay Lloyd. The other issue, though, is Lloyd was rumored to be bringing an assistant with him from the Timberwolves. So that same model, that same coaching style and coaching system, he might have been able to bring his own coach with him to coach the Bulls. And so it was kind of like, if that model's working for them, let's bring two guys in that can come in together, that already have that relationship, that know each other. And a lot can be said for that. You look at Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, they came in together. And actually, no, they didn't come together. I guess Poles came in and had to do Eberflus. But either way, you're looking at this and you're like, okay, like those two guys are in sync right now. And that's going to be the key, is who does Bryson Graham hire as coach? Is he an assistant? He said he's not necessarily going for a big name. You don't have to have a championship pedigree to get this job. He's looking at assistants. He's looking at everything. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he does personnel-wise. I mean, you look at Boston right now. They have the personnel. They don't have the coaching. Could be the same here. We could bring in all the great players, but if you can't put them together and make it work with a good coach, then it's all for nothing. And it's vice versa. You could bring in a great coach. I thought Billy Donovan was a decent coach. He was trying to adapt his game to be more modern, and they never gave him the players. And so there's going to be a synergy here, and that's going to be the single biggest decision that Bryson Graham is going to make. It doesn't matter who he drafts. I'm sure his scouting is great. That's what his strength is. I'm sure whoever he goes and gets in the first round and second round this year, we have 2 picks in the first round, one of them being a lottery. So you could change this organization in one swoop. That's 2 guys. You could potentially get 2 superstars, depending on how you draft and if you get it right. So I look at this as being like, yeah, he can do all the right things, but if you don't bring in the right coach who's modern, got a modern system, teaches 3-pointers, plays the numbers game, then what are we doing here? So I'm not judging him before he gets a chance to cook. I'm just kind of telling you, like, it's been a mixed bag between a lot of people about who this guy is and how he's going to pan out. So we'll play it by ear. We'll take it how it goes. Some other news, we do have the Blackhawks were drawn in the lottery. They had a pretty good shot at getting at least the second pick in the draft, but they dropped down to number 4, which is not bad. I'll take number 4. Here's my thing though with the Blackhawks. It's time. It's time. I'm sick of hoarding number 1 picks. I'm sick of trading away guys like Bertuzzi. Like, we did him right. I'm glad he got his chance to go play with his brother, and I'm glad stuff like that is happening, but it's time we stop trading people away and getting picks. This team has a core now. We have a core. This team needs to start producing. It's time they start winning. I want a playoff berth next year. Should have had a playoff berth this year. Like, it's time to start winning. I'm sick of getting these lottery picks and getting excited about it. I'm sorry. You get to a point where you can't get excited anymore about getting these top picks, because how many top picks are we going to get just to not win? We have a coach right now who's known for his ability to build teams, take them through a rebuild, develop players. I've seen a lot of that. I like what Blashill's done. I think he's done a great job, but it remains to be seen if this guy has it in him to get a team to the playoffs and make a deep run in the playoffs with a young core. I remember when we got Connor Bedard, I remember I said to myself, okay, we got Bedard, we got the generational talent. This guy's going to be the anchor of our franchise for the next decade to 15, maybe even 20 years. Hockey players play a long time now. Jaromir Jagr, I'm looking at you. But my whole thing is, I looked it up when we got him. I said, okay, we've got our star, we've got Frank Nazar, we've got, I think at the time we had Seth Jones, but we had some other small pieces. We got some goaltenders in there, but we started building. I said, okay, I know it's going to take a few more years for us to build up. You don't get Connor Bedard and then make the playoffs next year and make a deep run. I was realistic about that, but I started looking into it and I said, okay, this is a rebuild. We have to be patient. Bedard's going to take a few years to figure things out, and it remains to be seen if I knew Richardson may not have been the right coach. So I was kind of looking at it very objectively, and basically my prediction was 26, 27 was going to be when it was time to start producing. That's when the rebuild's got to be finished. You've had enough time. You've had enough draft picks. The problem with the Blackhawks is they have a lot of young talent, one of the younger teams in the league. they showed ability last year. They beat some of the big teams, some of the teams in first place, some teams who make deep playoff runs. They beat them throughout the year last year, and they had that stretch where they were on the heels of a wild card spot. And so I was like, okay, is it time? Like I was ready to roll. Like it's time. We've been building for all these years now, and here we are. Finally, are we going to start to see this team rise? And then they just fluttered out, which is okay. I mean, I had 2027 circled as a year where I was like, this is when this team needs to start being a team. You know, no longer is it cool just to sit here and not be a playoff team. Like you can't do that anymore. We've had too many picks. We've spent too much time, too much money. Too many good veterans have been gone to get some of these picks. Like we gotta start producing. And so I'm expecting big things next year out of this team. I think we'll go and get a good defenseman at the number 4 spot if we don't trade back and see what else we can get. But it's time for Kyle Davidson to start figuring this out. Like he's done a great job of building a team. We've got Lev Shinov, we got Nazar, we got Bedard, we've got 2 goalies that are one serviceable, one really good, and so I think we got enough. But this team does need kind of someone going into their prime, because I know Bedard's going to be getting close to that. Some of these other guys will be getting close to like starting to hit that full stride of you're in your prime now. But they need somebody who's like maybe not so much a star going into their prime, because that's going to cost a lot of draft picks to go get. But they need somebody who is either just coming out of their prime or just about to go into their prime, like somebody that has that experience that can start putting those numbers on the board, because that's all it's about now. I'm not going to be sitting here having the same conversation with everybody that's watching my page and tell you that the poo doesn't stink next year if we're sitting here talking about another lottery pick. So it's time to start producing. I want to see this team make the playoffs next year. That's kind of playoffs or bust. Like we got to start having serious conversations about front office and coaching if we don't make the playoffs next year. That's the way I'm billing it. I don't want to keep getting number 1 picks. I was excited for many, many years to get those high draft picks, and now I'm like, okay, I'm done. How many players do you need to make this work? Because I think we have enough. And so we'll see how that goes. We'll see what happens in the NHL draft, and we'll keep you all apprised to that. So moving on, we do have some Cubs news, quite a bit of Cubs news. So the Cubs are currently, as we're talking on today, Thursday, I think it's May 7th, but we're talking the Cubs have 2 straight walk-off wins over the Reds, and the Reds are surprisingly good, and they're up there in the division. So Cubs continue to be good. Their hitting still continues to be good. Now there are a few people like Pete Crow Armstrong is only like 2 points and batting average above the league average. So but we have guys like Moises Ballesteros who's over 300. Some of these guys are hitting really well. Seiya Suzuki has been on point. But we also have guys like Bregman's, but he's about 20 to 30 points below his career batting average. So I'd like to see, like, as much as this Cubs team continues to be a first place team, as much as they got to win over the Dodgers, they haven't reached their full potential yet. Pitching is going to be a problem. Matthew Boyd just had surgery to repair his meniscus. That was just announced a little bit ago that he'll be out more than likely 6 weeks, maybe even longer. So looks like it's going to be either Javier Assad or Ben Brown stepping into that, which I'd be excited to see Ben Brown be a 5th starter for the next 6 weeks. I think he's got the tools to do it. He hasn't produced. And, he has some games where he looks like a Cy Young winner, and some games where he gives up 10 runs, and I'd like to see a little more consistency. Even if he's giving up some runs, like this team can score runs, just give us a chance to be in the game towards the end. So, but, we still have Shota Managa, Tayan. He's not looking as good. Cabrera looks as good. That was a great pickup, a great trade. I say what you want about Owen Casey, but he's not looking so great this year. But Cabrera looks every bit as good as we thought he would be in the pitching role. So I love what I'm seeing from that starting pitching staff. I know I know Palencia was out for a while. Now he's back, so now we got our closer back. So the other wild card too is Justin Steele's about probably a month away from what he said was his goal for getting back from his Tommy John surgery. Can you imagine? That's a big score if he comes back. I don't know what his pitch count or restrictions will be, but we'll see what he has going for him when he comes back. I'm sure it'll be a slow comeback, even if it is a month from now. I'm looking at July, maybe even August, before we can expect any kind of production out of him or expect him to start and give us 6 or 7 innings. I just don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what the outlook from coming back from a Tommy John surgery is, but that's another addition to our rotation that could be a nice infusion in a couple months here. So we're gonna keep our eye on the Cubs. They're smoking right now, but as good as they are right now and as much as they are in first place, I think they have a whole nother level they have yet to go to. They have some guys on this team who have yet to produce. PCA is heating up. I'm liking what I'm seeing. He's got that flair, but he hit that home run last night to tie the game at 6 in the ninth. And I'm looking at this team and I'm like, okay, they're ready to start hitting their stride. It's amazing that they're in first place. They're as dominant as they are. They're scoring as many runs as they do, but they're still not as good as they could be. So I'm looking at how it goes and how when people start coming up, I'd like to see Dansby hit a little bit better, but he's Dansby. He's our defensive guy at short. He's never been expected to bat all that well, but I do want to see the PCA get his average up. I want to see Bregman start hitting a little bit better. Michael Busch needs to hit a little bit better. But then we got some guys that are hitting really well, and I just hope they can keep it up. But we also need to stop giving up so many runs. I mean, our starters are doing pretty well and not giving up runs, but that bullpen does need some help. And I know we lost Porter Hodge and some other people, so the bullpen might be an issue going forward. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline, but we'll check back in. It's still very early in the season, and I'm not going to get too deep into the Cubs stuff. As long as they're in first place, I'm happy. Keep it up. I don't know that I have much else. I know I said I'm talking about some UFC. This is not necessarily anything Chicago related, but we do have UFC 328 on Saturday night. That is the Sean Strickland Kazmat Chimaev for the middleweight title. I think that'll be pretty fun. I don't see Strickland winning that. He can't just jab Chimaev and hope to win that fight like he normally does, but he's also not going to out wrestle him, so that's going to be a tough fight. There is a Chicago connection. I remember when Chimaev actually won the middleweight title from Dricus du Plessis, and that was at the United Center in Chicago, and Chimaev actually went around to a lot of local Chicago BJJ gyms and trained with them and saw how they trained and kind of gave back to the community. So I do have a lot of respect for him. But UFC fight coming up this weekend, I'm excited about that. Not necessarily a Chicago thing, but I told you I would cover some of that stuff. Outside of that, we probably will be getting into some more college stuff. I mean, we've got some Northwestern stuff we can talk about. I am a KU fan, so all you Chicago Jayhawks out there, we'll talk about some KU stuff. That's all I have for you today. Thanks everyone for listening. Hit that like button, subscribe if you like it, and once again, I plan on doing some of these live sessions, so we'll get to those in a little bit. But everyone have a great day.